The morning sun cast long shadows across the military base on Kepler Station as Marcus finished his daily training routine. Sweat dripped from his forehead as he completed the last set of combat exercises. Around him, alien warriors from dozens of species prepared for another day of fighting against the Void Swarm, the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known. Marcus wiped his face with a towel and looked around the training ground. The Zalani warriors moved with perfect precision, their crystalline bodies reflecting light in beautiful patterns. The Thorax soldiers practiced their massive strength techniques, each one standing twice as tall as any human. The winged ethers soared overhead, testing their aerial combat skills. Among all these powerful beings, Marcus often wondered what made humans special. He was not the strongest warrior here. He was not the fastest or the smartest by alien standards. Yet somehow the Alliance had specifically requested human soldiers for this war. "Marcus," called a voice behind him. He turned to see Commander Wells approaching with his usual serious expression. "Report to Briefing Room 7. We have a new mission." Marcus nodded and gathered his equipment. 3 years ago, when the Void Swarm first attacked human colonies, he had been just another soldier in Earth's defense forces. Now he was part of an elite mixed species unit that specialized in the most dangerous missions against the enemy. The briefing room was filled with his usual squad members. There was Court, a massive thorax whose rocky skin could stop most weapons. Flying near the ceiling was Zeph, an ether whose 4 wings allowed incredible aerial maneuvers. And sitting at the strategy table was Vera. Vera was unlike any being Marcus had ever met. Her body was made of living crystal that changed colors based on her thoughts and emotions. Right now she glowed a soft blue, which Marcus had learned meant she was focused and ready for work. Her mind could process tactical information faster than any computer, calculating thousands of possible battle outcomes in seconds. "Good morning, Marcus," Vera said without looking up from the holographic battle maps floating above the table. "I have been analyzing the mission parameters. The probability of success increases by 12% when you are part of the team." Marcus smiled as he took his seat. Vera always spoke in precise mathematical terms, but over the past year he had learned to hear the warmth behind her logical words. When she said his presence improved their chances, it was her way of saying she was glad to see him. Commander Wells activated the main display, showing a detailed map of the Nexus 7 system. Intelligence reports indicate the Void Swarm is building a new type of weapon on the 3rd planet. If they complete it, they could destroy entire star systems in minutes instead of hours. The room fell silent. Everyone knew how devastating the Void Swarm could be. Their ships consumed everything in their path, turning matter itself into fuel for their endless expansion. Entire civilizations had been erased from existence in the 3 years since they first appeared, from beyond the galactic rim. "Your mission is to infiltrate the facility and gather intelligence on this weapon," the commander continued. "Standard infiltration protocols will not work. The swarm has adapted to our usual tactics." Vera's crystalline form shifted to a deeper blue as she processed the information. "Commander, the data suggests this mission has only a 37% chance of success using conventional methods. We will need to adapt our approach significantly. That's where our human element comes in," Wells said, looking directly at Marcus. "Intelligence analysis shows that every successful mission against adapted swarm defenses has involved human tactical creativity. Your ability to think outside established patterns has proven invaluable." Marcus felt the familiar weight of responsibility. Other species often called human thinking chaotic and unpredictable. What they saw as a weakness, the Alliance had learned to use as a strength. When all logical solutions failed, humans found new ways forward. "When do we deploy?" Marcus asked. "Ships leave in 6 hours, Wells replied. "Use the time to prepare and plan. This mission could determine the outcome of the entire war." As the briefing ended and others left to prepare, Marcus remained behind with Vera. She was still studying the tactical displays, her crystal body now showing patterns of yellow and orange as she worked through complex calculations. "The math is not encouraging," she said softly. "Even with your creative input, our chances of survival are below 50%. Marcus moved closer to the table, studying the enemy positions. "Math doesn't account for everything, Vera. Sometimes the impossible solution is the right one." Vera's colors shifted to a gentle purple, which Marcus had learned indicated curiosity mixed with affection. "That is what I find most remarkable about your species. You consistently achieve results that mathematics says should be impossible. Over the past year, Marcus and Vera had developed a partnership that went beyond mere military cooperation. Her logical mind complemented his intuitive approach perfectly. In battle, she could calculate the perfect strategy while he found ways to implement it that the enemy never expected. But their relationship had grown beyond tactical necessity. During quiet moments between missions, they had shared stories of their worlds. Vera had told him about the crystal cities of her homeworld, where mathematics was considered the highest form of art. Marcus had described Earth's chaotic beauty, from thunderstorms to ocean waves to the unpredictable patterns of human cities. "I have been thinking about something," Vera said, her color shifting to soft pink. Marcus had never seen that particular shade before. "After this war ends, assuming we survive, what will you do?" Marcus sat down across from her, noting how the light from her crystal form cast rainbow patterns on the metal table. "I hadn't thought that far ahead. I suppose I'll go back to Earth, maybe find some peaceful work." "What about you?" "Zalani society expects me to return to my role as a mathematical researcher," she said. "But I find that prospect less appealing than it once was. Working with your team, experiencing the unpredictability of real combat, has changed my perspective on pure logic." There was something in her tone that made Marcus look up from the tactical displays. Vera's crystalline face was difficult to read by human standards, but her colors had shifted to a warm golden hue he had never seen before. "Vera," he said carefully, "are you saying you don't want to go back to your old life?" "I am saying that I have discovered something more valuable than mathematical certainty," she replied. "I have discovered the beauty of chaos, particularly the chaos that surrounds you." Marcus felt his heart rate increase. Was Vera suggesting what he thought she was suggesting? For months he had pushed down his growing feelings for her, assuming that their different biologies made any relationship impossible. "Marcus," Vera continued, her colors now cycling through patterns of gold and silver, "I believe what humans call emotions have developed in my consciousness matrix. Specifically, I believe I have developed what your species calls love." The words hit Marcus like a physical force. He had dreamed of hearing something like this, but had never dared to hope it was possible. "Vera, I feel the same way. I have for months now." Her crystal form brightened considerably, casting brilliant light throughout the room. "Then perhaps we should consider the possibility of a permanent partnership. What humans call marriage." Marcus stood up, his mind racing. The idea of spending his life with Vera filled him with more joy than he had felt since the war began. "Yes," he said without hesitation. "Yes, I want that more than anything." But even as he spoke, he saw Vera's colors begin to dim. The beautiful gold and silver patterns faded to darker shades of blue and gray. "However," she said, her voice taking on the careful tone she used when delivering bad news, "I have spent considerable time researching the biological and psychological requirements for successful bonding between our species." Marcus felt a cold sensation in his stomach. "And?" Vera stood as well, her full height making her tower over him. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of absolute mathematical certainty. "The research indicates that true bonding between humans and Zalani is impossible. Our consciousness types are fundamentally incompatible." "What do you mean incompatible?" Marcus asked, though part of him already feared the answer. Vera's colors shifted to deep purple as she accessed her internal database. "Human neural patterns operate on what your scientists call chaos theory. Your thoughts are unpredictable, emotional, intuitive. This chaos is what makes your tactical creativity possible. It is what makes you beautiful to me." She paused, her colors growing darker. "Zalani consciousness requires perfect mathematical harmony. Our thought patterns are based on crystalline structures that demand logical consistency. A true mental bond between us would require synchronizing these incompatible systems." Marcus felt the room growing cold around him. What would happen if we tried? "The bonding process would force one of us to change to match the other," Vera explained, her voice becoming more mechanical as she delivered the devastating news. "Either your chaotic neural patterns would be forced into mathematical order, destroying the creative chaos that makes you human, or my crystalline consciousness matrix would be shattered by attempting to process true randomness." The full impact of her words hit Marcus like a physical blow. "So you're saying that for us to truly be together, one of us would have to stop being ourselves?" "Correct," Vera said, her colors now completely gray. I would either have to watch you become a mathematical automaton, losing everything that makes you who you are, or I would have to accept the destruction of my own consciousness matrix. Neither option is acceptable. Marcus stared at her, his mind struggling to process what she was telling him. After everything they had been through together, after discovering that they loved each other, biology itself was standing in their way. There has to be another solution, he said, his voice rough with emotion. There has to be some way to make this work. Vera's crystal form began to tremble slightly, something Marcus had never seen before. I have run every possible calculation, analyzed every scientific paper on consciousness compatibility, consulted with the greatest minds of both our species. The mathematics are absolute. There is no way for us to bond without destroying one of us. Marcus felt his legs give out beneath him. He dropped to his knees on the cold metal floor of the briefing room, staring up at the being he loved but could never truly have. Sorry, human, Vera said, her voice breaking in a way that her mechanical translation system could barely handle. We can't marry each other. The words echoed in the empty room like a death sentence. Marcus remained on his knees, not in defeat, but in the way humans do when facing a problem that seems impossible to solve. His mind was already beginning to work, searching for angles that mathematics might have missed. Vera watched him, her colors cycling through patterns of sadness and confusion. Marcus, I am sorry. If there were any way to change this reality, I would dedicate my entire existence to finding it. Marcus looked up at her, and despite the devastating news, Vera saw something in his expression that made her pause. It was not the look of someone accepting defeat. It was the look of a human who had just been told something was impossible. Vera, Marcus said, his voice gaining strength, you just made a mistake that even the greatest mathematical minds in the galaxy keep making. What mistake? She asked, her colors shifting to confused yellow. Marcus stood up, brushing dust from his knees. You told a human that something was impossible. For the first time since he had known her, Vera's colors went completely white, indicating total confusion. I do not understand. The mathematics are clear. The mathematics are clear about what's been tried before, Marcus said, his tactical mind beginning to engage with the problem. But humans specialize in finding solutions that no one has tried yet. Before Vera could respond, the alert klaxon began sounding throughout the base. Their mission was beginning, and they had to focus on the immediate threat. But as they gathered their equipment and prepared for deployment, Vera noticed something different about Marcus. He was not moving like someone who had accepted defeat. He was moving like someone who had found a new objective, a new mission that was just as important as stopping the Void Swarm. As they boarded the transport ship with the rest of their team, Vera realized that she had just done something that alien species across the galaxy had learned not to do. She had challenged a human to solve an impossible problem. And in the 3 years since humans had joined the galactic war effort, impossible problems had a habit of becoming possible when humans refused to give up. The transport ship lifted off, carrying them toward their dangerous mission against the Void Swarm. But Marcus was already thinking beyond that battle, toward a different kind of war entirely, a war against the limitations of biology itself. 6 months had passed since the successful mission against the Void Swarm facility on Nexus 7. The intelligence Marcus and his team had gathered led to a decisive victory that turned the tide of the war. The Swarm's advance had been stopped, and now the Alliance was pushing them back toward the galactic rim. But for Marcus, the real battle had just begun. He stood in his quarters aboard the research station orbiting Earth, surrounded by holographic displays showing brain scans, consciousness mapping data, and mathematical equations that would have made most humans dizzy. For the past 6 months, he had thrown himself into studying the problem of consciousness compatibility with the same determination he brought to military tactics. Still working on the impossible problem? Asked Dr. Sarah Chen, the station's lead neuroscientist, as she entered his quarters with a cup of coffee. Marcus rubbed his tired eyes and accepted the drink gratefully. Not impossible, just really, really difficult. Dr. Chen smiled and shook her head. Marcus, I've been studying consciousness for 15 years. What you're trying to do goes against everything we know about how minds work. Zalani consciousness is based on crystalline mathematical structures. Human consciousness is based on chaotic neural networks. They're as different as ice and fire. That's what everyone keeps telling me, Marcus replied, pulling up a new set of data on his display. But ice and fire can coexist. They just need the right conditions. Over the past months, Marcus had consulted with experts from across human space. Neuroscientists, consciousness researchers, quantum physicists, even philosophers had tried to help him understand the problem. Most had politely told him that what he wanted was scientifically impossible, but a few had been intrigued enough to help him explore new possibilities. "Show me what you've found," Dr. Chen said, settling into a chair beside his workstation. Marcus activated a complex holographic model that showed two different types of consciousness patterns. One was the orderly, crystalline structure of Zalani thought. The other was the chaotic, ever-changing pattern of human consciousness. "Everyone has been trying to make these two patterns match," Marcus explained, manipulating the display. "But what if we don't need them to match? What if we just need them to communicate?" Dr. Chen leaned forward, studying the model with growing interest. "You're talking about a translation layer, something that could convert chaotic thoughts into mathematical patterns and vice versa." "Exactly," Marcus said, his excitement growing. "Think about it like a universal translator, but for consciousness instead of language. The Zalani don't need to think like humans, and humans don't need to think like Zalani. We just need a way to share our thoughts without changing what we are." Dr. Chen was quiet for a long moment, running calculations in her head. The computational requirements would be enormous. You'd need something that could process chaos theory mathematics in real time while maintaining perfect crystalline logic structures. "I know," Marcus said. "That's why I've been working with Dr. Torres on the AI development team. We think we can create a hybrid system that uses both quantum processors for the chaos calculations and crystalline matrices for the logic processing." Before Dr. Chen could respond, Marcus's communication device chimed with an incoming message. His heart jumped when he saw it was from Vera. "Marcus," her familiar voice filled the room, though the holographic projector couldn't capture the beautiful color changes of her crystal form. "I have completed my research assignment on the Zalani homeworld. I am requesting permission to visit Earth. There are some developments in consciousness research that I wish to discuss with you." Marcus felt a surge of hope and nervousness. He had been sending Vera regular updates on his research, but she had been working on her own projects. If she was coming to Earth, it meant she had something important to share. "Send her a response," Marcus told the communication system. "Tell her she's welcome to visit anytime. I have some things to show her too." Dr. Chen stood up, gathering her notes. "I'll leave you to prepare for your visitor. But Marcus, don't get your hopes up too high. Even if you solve the technical challenges, there could be biological or psychological barriers we haven't considered yet." Marcus nodded, but his expression remained determined. "Dr. Chen, in the past 3 years, humans have helped win a war that every other species thought was unwinnable. We've solved tactical problems that alien minds said were impossible. If we can beat the Void Swarm, we can beat this too." 3 days later, Marcus waited at the orbital docking station as Vera's transport ship arrived. When the airlock opened and she stepped through, Marcus was struck again by her otherworldly beauty. Her crystalline form caught the station's lights and scattered them in rainbow patterns across the walls. But what caught his attention most was her color. Instead of her usual blue tones, Vera was glowing with patterns of gold and silver that Marcus had never seen before. "Hello, Marcus," she said, her voice carrying warmth that her translation system had learned to convey over the months they had been apart. "You look well. The research work agrees with you, Vera," Marcus said, stepping forward but stopping just short of the physical contact he longed for. "You look different. Your colors are brighter than I remember." "That is one of the things I need to discuss with you," she replied. "But first I would like to see what you have been working on. Your progress reports have been intriguing, but I need to see the actual systems to understand what you have achieved." Marcus led her through the research station, explaining the various projects he had been involved in. The neural mapping laboratory, where human volunteers allowed scientists to study their chaotic thought patterns. The quantum processing center, where massive computers tried to model consciousness interactions. the crystalline growth facility, where they were attempting to create hybrid crystal quantum matrices. The basic concept is sound, Vera said as they toured the facilities. A translation layer could theoretically allow different consciousness types to share information without forcing compatibility. But the technical challenges are immense. That's why I brought in help, Marcus said, leading her to the main laboratory. I want you to meet Dr. Elena Vasquez. Dr. Vasquez was a small woman with graying hair and intense eyes who had spent the last decade working on artificial intelligence development. When Marcus had explained his problem to her, she had immediately seen the potential applications beyond just personal relationships. Dr. Vasquez, Marcus said as they entered the lab, I'd like you to meet Vera, the Zelani strategist I've told you about. Dr. Vasquez looked up from her workstation and smiled. Vera, it's a pleasure to meet you. Marcus has told me so much about your tactical abilities. I understand you can calculate battle outcomes faster than our best computer systems. Vera's colors shifted to pleased blue. I have some advantages in processing mathematical data, yes, but I understand you have made some breakthroughs in consciousness translation technology. We've made progress, Dr. Vasquez replied, activating a holographic display that showed a complex device about the size of a human hand. This is our prototype neural bridge. It uses quantum processors to analyze chaotic thought patterns and crystalline matrices to convert them into mathematical structures that Zelani consciousness can interpret. Vera studied the design with intense focus, her colors cycling through various shades as she processed the information. The theoretical framework is elegant, she said finally. But has it been tested? That's the challenge, Dr. Vasquez admitted. We can test the individual components, but we need willing volunteers from both species to test the actual consciousness bridging function. The risks are significant. Marcus felt his heart rate increase. What kind of risks? Mental feedback loops, Dr. Vasquez explained. If the translation algorithms fail, both minds could be damaged by trying to process incompatible thought patterns. In the worst-case scenario, both test subjects could suffer permanent consciousness damage. The laboratory fell silent as the implications sank in. Marcus had spent 6 months working toward this solution, but now he was faced with the reality that testing it could destroy both his and Vera's minds. There is something else you need to know, Vera said, her colors shifting to deep purple. The reason my appearance has changed, the reason I requested permission to visit Earth. Marcus turned to face her fully. What is it? I have been experiencing what human researchers would call emotional evolution, she said. My feelings for you have continued to develop during our separation, but more significantly, my consciousness matrix has been adapting. Dr. Vasquez stepped closer, her scientific curiosity overriding social politeness. Adapting how? I have been developing what I can only describe as tolerance for chaos, Vera explained. Small random elements in my thought processes that would have caused severe distress 6 months ago now feel natural, even pleasant. I believe my crystal matrix is learning to incorporate controlled chaos. Marcus stared at her in amazement. You're saying your mind is becoming more compatible with human consciousness naturally? To a limited extent, yes, Vera replied. But I have also discovered something else through my research on the Zelani homeworld. There are historical records of successful bondings between Zelani and other chaos-based species, though they occurred thousands of years ago. Dr. Vasquez pulled up her own data files. That matches what we've found in our research. Consciousness compatibility isn't fixed. It can be developed through gradual exposure and adaptation, but the process usually takes decades. Unless you have technological assistance, Marcus said, looking at the neural bridge prototype with new understanding. Exactly, Vera said, her colors brightening. The device could accelerate natural adaptation by providing a safe way for our consciousness types to interact gradually. Instead of forcing immediate compatibility, it could guide a slow integration process. Dr. Vasquez began pulling up new calculations on her display. If we modify the bridge to work incrementally, starting with very limited connection and gradually increasing the interface depth, we could potentially achieve compatibility without the risks of sudden integration. Marcus felt hope rising in his chest for the first time in months. How long would the process take? Based on Vera's natural adaptation rate and our projections for technological assistance, Dr. Vasquez said, running numbers through her computer. Probably 6 to 8 months of regular sessions. I am willing to attempt this process, Vera said without hesitation. The potential benefits extend beyond our personal relationship. If successful, this technology could enable unprecedented cooperation between chaos-based and order-based species throughout the galaxy. Marcus looked at both women, feeling the weight of decision. Everything he had worked for over the past 6 months came down to this moment. They could try the gradual integration process, risking their minds for the chance at a future together. Or they could accept that some barriers were too great to overcome. When can we start? Marcus asked. Dr. Vasquez smiled. I'll need a week to modify the bridge for incremental integration. But Marcus, I want you to understand that even with the reduced risks, this is still experimental technology. We're venturing into completely uncharted territory. Dr. Vasquez, Vera said, her colors shifting to determined gold. You are working with a human who refused to accept the word impossible, and a Zelani who has learned to appreciate chaos. Uncharted territory is exactly where we belong. 1 week later, Marcus and Vera sat in the modified laboratory, wearing prototype neural bridge devices that looked like metallic headbands with small crystalline components. Dr. Vasquez monitored their vital signs and consciousness patterns from a control station nearby. Remember, Dr. Vasquez said, this first session will establish only the most basic connection. You should be able to sense each other's presence mentally, but not share specific thoughts. If either of you experiences any discomfort, we stop immediately. Marcus looked at Vera, who was sitting across from him with her crystal form glowing soft blue. Ready? I have been ready for 6 months, she replied. Dr. Vasquez activated the neural bridge, and Marcus felt a strange tingling sensation in his mind. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then gradually, he became aware of something new at the edge of his consciousness. It felt like standing near a vast, perfectly ordered crystal cathedral, where every note of music was in perfect harmony. I can sense you, Vera said, her colors shifting to amazed silver. Your thoughts feel like a thunderstorm, but a beautiful thunderstorm. Powerful and unpredictable and alive. Marcus smiled, feeling tears forming in his eyes. For the first time, he was actually touching Vera's mind, experiencing a tiny fraction of her crystalline perfection. You feel like the most beautiful mathematical equation ever written. Complex and elegant and absolutely perfect. Dr. Vasquez monitored their readings with growing excitement. Both consciousness patterns are stable. The bridge is working exactly as designed. How do you both feel? Like I'm home, Marcus said. Like I have found the missing piece of my matrix, Vera replied. Over the following months, Marcus and Vera continued their sessions with the neural bridge. Each week, Dr. Vasquez increased the connection depth slightly, allowing them to share more complex thoughts and emotions. Marcus learned to appreciate the beauty of pure logic, while Vera discovered the joy of intuitive leaps and creative chaos. The process was not always easy. There were sessions where the mental strain left both of them exhausted. There were moments when their different thought processes clashed in ways that caused headaches and confusion. But each successful session brought them closer to true compatibility. Other researchers began visiting the station to observe their progress. Representatives from dozens of species requested copies of the neural bridge technology for their own cross-species relationships. What had started as Marcus's personal quest was becoming the foundation for a new era of interspecies unity. The final integration test is scheduled for tomorrow, Dr. Vasquez announced during their last preparatory session. If successful, you'll achieve full consciousness compatibility. You'll be able to share thoughts and emotions completely while maintaining your individual identity patterns. Marcus and Vera looked at each other across the laboratory, their connection through the current bridge allowing them to sense each other's nervousness and excitement. Whatever happens tomorrow, Marcus said, these past months have already given me more than I ever hoped for. I concur, Vera replied, her colors cycling through patterns that Marcus now recognized as deep contentment. But I believe we will succeed. Humans do not accept failure when fighting for love, and Zelani do not make mathematical errors when the calculations are this important. The next morning, Marcus and Vera prepared for their final test. The modified neural bridge hummed with power as Dr. Vasquez made final adjustments to the consciousness integration protocols. This is it, Dr. Vasquez said. Full integration in 3, 2, 1. The world exploded into sensation as Marcus and Vera's minds touched completely for the first time. Marcus experienced the vast crystalline perfection of Vera's consciousness. Understanding for the first time how beautiful pure mathematics could be, Vera felt the chaotic creativity of human thought, finally comprehending why humans could solve problems that defeated pure logic. But instead of one consciousness overwhelming the other, they found perfect balance. Marcus's chaos gave life and creativity to Vera's mathematical precision. Vera's logic gave structure and clarity to Marcus's intuitive leaps. Together they created something entirely new. A hybrid consciousness that was both chaotic and ordered, both creative and logical. Incredible, Dr. Vasquez whispered, watching their readings. You're not just compatible, you're synergistic. Your combined consciousness is more capable than either of your individual minds. Marcus and Vera opened their eyes and looked at each other with complete understanding. Through their neural link, they could share every thought, every emotion, every dream for the future. But more importantly, they were still themselves, just enhanced by their connection. So, Marcus said aloud, though they no longer needed spoken words to communicate, "Will you marry me?" Vera's crystal form blazed with colors Marcus had never seen before, patterns of pure joy that filled the laboratory with rainbow light. "Yes, human. I will marry you." Dr. Vasquez wiped tears from her eyes as she watched the two beings who had just proven that love could overcome any barrier, even the fundamental differences between species. "You know," she said, "I think you two are going to change the galaxy." 6 months later, Marcus and Vera stood before an audience of beings from across the known galaxy. Their wedding was broadcast to millions of worlds, watched by species who had never believed that true cross-species bonding was possible. The ceremony combined human traditions with Zilani mathematical rituals, creating something beautiful and unique. When they exchanged vows, their words were shared not just verbally but through their neural link, allowing everyone present to witness the depth of their connection. "Today we celebrate more than a marriage," announced the Alliance Chancellor, a dignified thorax whose rocky features showed unusual emotion. "We celebrate proof that the barriers between species are not as permanent as we once believed. Marcus and Vera have shown us that with determination, creativity, and love, even the impossible becomes possible." As the ceremony concluded and the celebration began, Marcus and Vera stepped onto a balcony overlooking the space station's observation deck. Through the transparent walls, they could see stars from across the galaxy, representing the countless species that had learned something important from their journey. "Do you ever regret the months of research and testing?" Vera asked, her colors showing peaceful contentment as she leaned against Marcus. Marcus put his arm around her crystalline form, marveling at how natural the gesture felt now. "Never. Some things are worth fighting for, even when everyone tells you they're impossible." "Especially when everyone tells you they're impossible," Vera corrected, her mental voice filled with humor. "That seems to be when humans perform their best work." As they watched the stars together, their minds perfectly linked but still wonderfully different, Marcus reflected on the journey that had brought them here. A human warrior and a Zilani strategist had faced an impossible problem and refused to accept defeat. In the end, that refusal had not only brought them together, but had opened new possibilities for every species in the galaxy. Love, it turned out, was not just possible between different species. It was the key to understanding each other across any barrier. And throughout the galaxy, other couples who had been told their love was impossible began to hope that they too might find a way forward. After all, they had proof that humans really were too stubborn to let the universe tell them no.